So
Yeah, I like that. I think that to give it one definition boxes it in, right? Because we're going to go over some topics today, and I think we can tie into every one of these from love. It's almost like something that radiates out, that's always there, but you tune into it. So it's not like you have to go acquire it. You just tune into it. It's kind of like abundance. Abundance would be a version of love. And so acceptance, releasing judgment about things would be a version of love. All the things that Paul talked about would be versions of love. The knowing would be
the
a version
blah
of
blah
love.
blah,
Yeah, all the blah blah blah, right? So
blah blah
as we
blah.
look at the blah 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 of love, I want to tie it into, and maybe we'll tag these people as we move along to some of these things that would be useful. And how does love answer this question? So one of them is from Deb. How
Ooh,
about
I love
effective
Deb.
versus efficient communication? How does love, let's tie that into effective versus efficient communication. Do you have some initial thoughts on that, Kellen?
What are the two words? Effective versus.
Efficient.
You know what? I I don't know that I live in a world of efficient anymore. And
Yeah.
here's this.
Well,
It's
if
a,
you
it's a
if you don't, we're screwed. I'm
well, no. Here's what I mean by that. When I was all those things you said before, I was a big shot. I had C-suite positions in the U.S. and Canada, and I've testified before the U.S. Congress, and I had a contract with Her Late Majesty the Queen, and all that sort of stuff was real in my life, and getting a lot of stuff done. Sometimes where multiple billions of dollars were on the line, and getting it done the fastest way possible was important. In the matter, and I'm not saying efficient isn't important, because wasting a ton of time isn't good, because time's the only thing our life's made out of, time and choice. But I think the word efficient has a lot of baggage to it.
Mm.
That means hurry up and just get it done and damn the consequences. And so if we leave details or we leave some battlefield shrapnel in the wake, that's okay because we got it done. And so I would go way more toward effective, especially in matters of development, in matters of the heart, and in matters of everything that really matters.
I wonder, are they the same word though? The effective and efficient?
Well, I don't know. I guess you could see it that way. I was thinking that effective means it is done well. Efficient meaning it did what it was supposed to do. Efficient
Yeah.
doesn't necessarily tell me that it did what it needed to be done. It was good enough to leave it
Yeah.
and move
Yeah.
on. And so efficient, good enough to leave it and move on, doesn't feel the same in me as effective.
Yeah.
And
It's
so,
almost,
I wouldn't call them the same.
but your definition of doing, right? They both come from that root. And communication, to have something in common, is where that is. So effective versus efficient communication from the space of love. Um, can you tie that in?
Effective. If someone effectively knows that I'm using everything that I have, my spiritual, physical, emotional, mental
Yeah.
resources to serve them, then they will feel loved. They will feel it and they will know it. Now, they can always reject it, and I understand that happens and can happen. So effective means they had the experience of that, and therefore it mattered.
Mm.
Effective means it mattered and did the thing that it was designed to do.
Mm.
Efficient, if I think about it, I'm going to love you efficiently.
Yeah.
How does that land if I'm going to be effective?
It feels really good. Hey, we're going to have a conversation, and I promise this will be efficient.
I love you efficiently.
Yeah, it doesn't feel right. And so there's a place for each thing. If I want to do the dishes efficiently, if I want to clean up the yard efficiently, then that might be even more appropriate than effectively, because if I do it effectively, I can pay every attention to every little blade of grass, and cut each one with care. But, the efficient might be more appropriate there.
Yeah, I like that. Even the communication, having something in common, uh, to be able to speak with somebody uh, effectively is like I have words that I can use. I can take all these resources and use those in that conversation effectively. Efficiently is like they're not losing the energy, right? Like they're in that communication. They're it's almost like I think of the brain and the way the brain works. The astrocytes wrap the synapses so that there's no chemical lost in that synaptic connection. And so it's efficient, right? So otherwise there's a gap and it's got to shoot across that gap. And without those astrocytes, it just becomes non-efficient, right? Becomes diluted.
Here's something funny for you.
Yeah.
Astronauts eat dried weird food, and it's efficient, but I
Yeah.
doubt that they would think that it was effective in the same way that it would be if they sat down and had a steak dinner.
Yeah, right. Like snack versus meal.
I saw Hugh's thing, and that's what made
yeah,
me think about the
yeah,
astronauts.
yeah. There's no emotion in efficient, Lori says. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think the love part of it is bringing the emotion into it and really taking all that you've been given and putting that into that communication, right? And then hopefully reciprocating. I think there was a word that was shared. I want to say it was Confucius. I think was it Confucius? The Analects of Confucius said something around if I could choose one word that would really change the world, it would be reciprocation, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's to do unto others as you would have them do to you, kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so the communication, the effective communication, would be somewhat a reciprocation. Hopefully, nobody's required to reciprocate, but that communicating in one direction would lead to communicating back in the other direction.
Well, in one sense, if you don't, it's not effective unless there is some return. In other words, if I don't know that you understand me or have received anything, that'd be like you making a video and putting it on YouTube and nobody watches it.
Right.
So you might have said whatever you said, but it was not effective because no one saw it. May have been effective for you. Maybe you had some change in articulating and describing and giving what you gave. But I think that the communication piece, at least, has got to have some. That's why they teach the principles of active listening and reflection and all that sort of stuff to sort of see that we're making the connection.
To reciprocate in some form, right? Communication is to have something in common. If there's nobody over there, there's nothing in common, right? There's no community to it. Right. Okay, so I feel good with that. Anything to add to that comment?
The thing that I like about it is like the awareness of the difference, because whether somebody or not is aware of how they're doing that, they may shift that if they're aware. Oh my gosh, I've been trying to be efficient all this time, and really this person needs for me to be effective, and also come from a place where I can accept their effectiveness and the flaws, but it gets the job done, but it also brings their heart and soul into it, and their feelings and their way of doing the thing, and accepting that and going, okay, that works.
Those of you that are or have been married, which do you think works better in a conversation between husband and wife, especially if there's not complete agreement to start with? Efficient communication or effective communication?
One will get the job done, and the other will have a great change.
I mean, it depends how mad she is.
Yeah, it depends on a lot of things. But think about that at work too.
And efficient.
Yeah, work. An efficient communication might be an email to a bunch of employees. An effective communication might be a team meeting where there's a chance to share the collective understanding, ask questions, and do some other stuff. So it applies at work, it applies interpersonally, it applies in relationships. And there is absolutely a place for effectiveness and a place for efficiency, but they belong. They apply, at least not always, but generally, to different kinds of communication.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Karen. I don't know how to say her last name. Wanky, I believe. Wonky. Yeah, asks about self-sabotage. Now let's talk about love in relation to self-sabotage. How can that relate to somebody that's maybe struggling with that? They keep returning to old patterns. perhaps.
So my life is a story of that. So
Yeah.
I left home at 17, and from 17 to 52 for 35 years, I lived a roller coaster of creating big success financially and in the career, and then sabotaging it, like literally doing something to lose the job. And so I did that over and over again, and then would get another one. And each of those roller coaster rides got higher, meaning bigger things, more money, more this, that, and the other. And I lived with that self-sabotage. And that included all the stuff that, drugs and addiction and rehabs and a couple of attempts at suicide and so forth. And the reason, when you go to rehab, they always ask you, what's your drug of choice? And I used to say cocaine because that was probably the biggest, but it was anything and everything until I realized that my drug of choice was self-loathing. I needed to hate myself. And so whenever anything would go good, I would do something that would wreck it. On purpose. I didn't realize it was on purpose, but it was like the thermostat and Big Leap, that sort of thing. And I would trash it. And here's the reason, and here's what love has to do with it. I did not love myself. I believed with all my heart that I did not deserve the good things that I had created, and therefore I must wreck them. And I didn't have that language or ability to describe it at the time. But if you are sabotaging yourself, I can guarantee 100% you are not swimming in the lake of self-love. And it starts there, period. And that might include forgiveness. It might include lots of other things. But I have never had a conversation with someone who's living in the place of sabotaging their own efforts, damaging their own success, damaging their own relationships, where loving themselves was not at the core.
How do you swim in that lake?
How do you swim in the lake of self-love?
Yeah.
That's a process. It doesn't happen, at least in my experience, ever with myself or others, where one day all of the habits that you have created and all those connections and associations in your heart and in your brain have associated themselves one way where they're all suddenly changed. Sometimes there's I call it a liberation event. And even though I call it an event, there are 5 steps to the process, and it's not a momentary event. And something has to happen. I call it, the first step is a moment of inspiration. So there's a moment of inspiration where you see suddenly that there's a different possibility. Now you can find those moments of inspiration. Sometimes they find you, but you find them usually when you're looking for something different. You may not know what you're looking for. It might be in a book, a conference, a coach, a video, but it's a moment where you see something a different possibility, a moment of inspiration. And we often get those when we read a book or go to a conference or hear a cool talk, and it's like, yeah. But if we don't follow it up with the rest of the steps, maybe a giant in the distance. It doesn't happen. So after the moment of inspiration comes a commitment to change. And I am where I am, and I have a moment of inspiration seeing this thing. For me, it was the moment, the morning I woke up after being in hell 18 hours, out of body somewhere else. And those of you that have heard the story or read the book Tightrope of Depression know the story. I'm not going to retell it now, but I woke up that morning and realized I had been invited to change in that extraordinary experience. And that invitation was clear. The commitment to change was, I got up and I picked up $1,000 worth of cocaine that I had laying around and flushed it down the toilet. And I thumped my fist on the counter and said, I'm done. And I quit cold turkey that day. But that was the commitment to change. I didn't know where to go. I didn't know how to get help. I didn't know anything. But it was life and death. This is done. Okay. And the third thing is, so there's a moment of inspiration, a commitment to change, and then there has to be a plan, some kind of a plan. And that doesn't happen in an instant. That might take some study. It might take some shrinks or coaches or whatever, but you have to create a plan for change.
Hmm.
You have to have some kind of a plan. Okay, I've got all these habits and practices that have now become sometimes hardwired in my life. So now I have to have a plan. And then the fourth one is a process for consistency. And then the fifth one is a power for continual change. So you have to create a plan. You have to create the power to do it. And creating power is just like, you fill up your car with gas. I mean, there has to be a source of continual power is the way I describe it. And that's actually this fourth step. So a plan for change, a source of continual power, because you had a moment, but there has to be a source of continual power, and a process for consistency, because we all fall off whatever wagon it is we're either jumping on or whatever. So to me, those are the 5 parts that I described for a liberation event, which is where you become free from self-loathing and move into the pool of self-love. So the answer to your question, the short answer, Ryan, is you do something. And that 5-step process is how I work through, causing the do something to become real.
Well, in that 5-step of love right there that you just that process, there's a lot inside of there. So that is a short answer too, and I appreciate that was super useful for, especially for me, who has had a tendency of doing that in the past, to look at the steps that you outlined and go, yeah, okay, and then I can then fill in gaps in between there and go find the coach or the coaches or the people. I can make plans, I can adjust my plans, I can continue to recommit and have that process for consistency and the power. So anyway, that was beautifully said. And
Thank you. And I'm going to say them again for those that want to write them down. You have to have a moment of inspiration, something that invites you or allows you to see something new. The second thing is a commitment to change, because you can see the moment and say, yeah, that's nice for somebody, but not me. So there has to be a commitment that I'm going to go to a different place. The third step is a plan, some kind of a plan that is adjustable. And the fourth one, is a source of continual power. Because without an intentional source of continual power, we all fizzle out. And then the fifth one is a process for consistency.
So I see that in the metaphor of the giants and the smalls. The awakening moment, he sees the giants. He has a commitment to change, so he travels to the land of the giants. His plan is to talk to a giant. The giant teaches him. And then there's a continual process of growth that happens over a period of time. And then this consistent commitment to not only grow, but to go back and teach others to do the same thing. And when I hear the term self-sabotage, like tying that in, I shared a video in the my12journeys.com that talks about that the 50,000 to 70,000 thoughts that we have a day, only 5% of those thoughts are new. Like, we rehash the same thoughts every day. So if we're in a cycle of feeling unlovable, undeserving, unworthy, and we're rehashing that constantly, and then our reality is an expression of whatever's going on in there, then in most cases, we're going to fall back into those old patterns and repeat the same thinking that we've always thought, hoping that this will change. When love would say, let's change what we're putting in there that we're thinking about. We really need to slow down. It's almost like what you're talking about. Sometimes you have to go to the land of the giants to find that person that can help you do that. A program, a therapist, a mentor, somebody like Kellen that can just sit with you and help you see how powerful you are when you can't see it for yourself. To me, that's self-love versus self-sabotage. You have more thoughts around that?
I agree with you. Like where you find each of those pieces and the people that represent those for you is going to be different. What isn't different is the fact that you need to go find it. Because you can make up excuses, you can make up reasons, you can not, and then that's giving into the 95% of habitual thinking that you have, that you don't deserve it. You can't have it. It isn't for you. I mean, all those things I've said. Yeah, I believe somebody can do this, but it's not for me. I can't. All that kind of language. I can remember clearly having said it many times. Yeah, for somebody. Yeah, this. Yeah, that. Yeah, but. Yeah, but. Yeah, but. Yeah, but. And it's like Bugs Bunny. Wabbit, wabbit, wabbit. Yeah, but. Or Elmer Fudd, right? And you just listen to your language, and see the context and the tonality with which you talk. So it isn't a trivial process to go swim in that lake. You have to get up. You have to decide you're going to do it. You have to get the things that helped you. You didn't get to the negative place that you are with 95% XYZ in a minute. You didn't get there in a day. You didn't get there without help and with a lot of negative reinforcement. So you need the same kinds of things to move you to a different lake to swim in.
I like it. Now let's tackle 3 words now. Accountability, resilience, and forgiveness. So this is from Alina Dumling, Troy Taylor, and Cheryl Martin. So resilience, accountability, and forgiveness. How does love tie into each of those?
All right. Well, I'm going to do them a little bit one at a time. Yep. So you'll have to remind them. Forgiveness, like I've written 19 books, and every single one of them is written because I needed to write them. The book that is just published this week, not counting the one just before that, was a book titled Forgiveness, A Journey of Courage to a Place of Freedom and Power. And love is the engine for forgiveness. I have an operational definition of forgiveness that, again, it's one of those big things that you just point at. But forgiveness for me is a choice to no longer allow the energetic effects of past events to have power in the present. So it's no longer letting things that happened before now have power in the present, whether that's something that somebody did to you or something that you did or didn't do that you feel bad about. So forgiving yourself or forgiving others. And usually when people talk about that, they say, yeah, but then, dangerous situation. I'm not talking about putting yourself in dangerous situations. I'm not talking about any of that. So take that whole pile off the table. This is you alone, no longer allowing the negative things of past events to have power in the present. Now that assumes if I did something wrong and I had boatloads, you do what you can to fix it. But quite frankly, most of that stuff that carries real power, you can't fix anyway. You can't actually fix it. You can apologize till you're blue in the face, and you can't take away someone's broken heart or lost trust or the things that really are the heavy. You can't fix those anyway. So you do what you can, and then you have a choice. I'm either going to live continually and forever burdened, or I'm going to release all that in forgiveness, which is fueled by love, allow whatever processes there are to handle the justice part to the extent that's appropriate. And it's not mine to do. And since I have lived that walk myself, but one of my statements in my PTAC, Personal Truth and Commitment document, is I am forgiveness, holding no judgment, anger, or loathing toward anyone for anything, including myself. Now, I say that not to say, hey, whatever, it's me. This is the journey I needed to walk, write that book, and to be that so that I could be everything I can be and am right now. And so love is the engine to forgiveness. You love yourself enough to forgive everybody, everything, including yourself. And you love others enough to allow them their own path and process. So that's what I would say about forgiveness.
The idea of forgiveness too, of not causing additional harm. If what we radiate out bounces back at some point and sticks to us, we might consider what we radiate out. Right? If we had to experience the pain we put on other people, we might not put so much pain out. But because we don't immediately feel it, we broadcast that out, and that's what they experience. If we broadcast love out, that's what we experience. What sticks to them sticks to us, essentially. And forgiveness to me is one of those things that it's not excusing the acts, but it's not causing additional harm over what happened. Justice will be served in whatever form it's served, but I don't need to heap my stuff on somebody else and then have that come back and stick to me and then have to work through that in addition to my own stuff. I'd rather just start out and just broadcast love out there, and so forgiveness is that idea that if I'm broadcasting hate and anger in some form, that's going to come back and stick to me. Do you agree with that, or is there a different view around that, Kellen?
I don't disagree with that at all. So that means I agree with it. We do. I mean, the idea of karma is what goes around comes around. And look, there's enough negativity and grumpy stuff in the world.
Yeah.
And I make a conscious choice. This is I get to choose who I am. I create my being. My being is that I radiate love with every breath, with every moment. And the minute I don't, I clean it up, fess up, do whatever I need to do to clean that up, because I don't want that. I don't want it, not because I'm supposed to, not because somebody said.
Yeah, right.
I just don't want to be that. I want to be a beacon of light, a vessel of love, and a conduit of power. That's who I choose to be. And so I make sure to do that all the time and check myself and listen to my words, my language, my thoughts, because I said so. That's who I want to be. So we can move on to one of those other words if you want.
Resilience or accountability. You get to pick.
Resilience. Resilience is a joyful choice. I get bashed down. You each have been bashed down or are being bashed down in any circumstance of any kind: financial, physical, emotional, loss of relationship, loss of health, betrayal. All of those things happen in different measures to all of us. And at some point, each of us have probably felt, no one could possibly understand my life. It is the worst, most awful, terrible, horrible thing that could ever be in the universe of things. We've all probably felt that at a moment. And you know what? It's probably true, because our journey through life is designed for us individually. So good. Let that be so. Yours is the worst, most awful, terrible situation at some point in your life. Resilience is a choice not to live there. So the question is going to always simply be, given what is, all this stuff, what do I wish to create? Because even in those circumstances, Viktor Frankl in the concentration camps in World War II, he noticed and talked about people who chose to get up and go make other people's day bright. They were laying in the same beds and starving on the same rations and all the rest. But they made a choice with their freedom to choose to go be bearers of light. Or you could lay there and be sufferers of pain, which they all were having. So resilience is not a thing that happens in an instant. It is a characteristic we develop, and some people may be blessed with that inclination more than others, because we all came with gifts and talents. That's fine. But resilience is a choice to take whatever there is and see what we can make.
It's that I'm worthy, I'm deserving of getting back up. Because it could be easy to say, I'm not deserving of getting back up. I'm down, I'm splattered against the ground, I'm not worthy of it. The comment that Andrea made too, of the guilty, we talk about forgiveness and we think in terms of other people, but also that same broadcasting that we're doing to other people, we can broadcast at ourselves. Like, if I'm feeling guilty, then I'm the one broadcasting feeling guilty, and therefore I'm adding to myself additional harm that I really don't need to feel. Like, feeling guilty to me is one of those things that it's adding harm to the situation. Now, if you judge, you judge. It just is what it is. And so to add power to it by naming it guilty or naming it a judgment of some sort just adds harm to the situation, right?
I also see it too, Nick, just real quick. It's like,
the
guilt comes in, and it's an opportunity for me. The guilt comes in, it's an opportunity not only to just, it's a checkpoint for me. It's, oh, okay, man, I'm feeling guilty. just like you say, hey, okay, separate the feelings from the thing. Like, is that true? Why is this coming up for me? Slowing down with it. Maybe you need to show yourself some more love
Yeah.
in that scenario. Maybe you've done nothing, maybe you have judged somebody accordingly. Um, you know, and it's okay. Yeah, it's just separating. Yeah, maybe
Yeah,
it's
that's okay. Yeah.
guilt. I think guilt can be a useful tool. That's all my point was on that.
I love it. Guilt is a checkpoint. It's a wake up call. I'm feeling something. Remember, feelings are just a collection of neurotransmitters. So in the body, feelings are a collection of neurotransmitters, and we all know the big long names of all of them. Okay, cool. So some cocktail makes you feel guilt. Your stomach feels funny. Your shoulders tight. Wherever that shows up: anger, guilt, frustration, fear, etc. Here's something that most people don't talk about. Those are all physical substances. They're produced by different glands and organs in the body, and that certain collections cause certain things. And here's an interesting thing to think about. We all know that we're dual beings. We have some kind of a spiritual element. Well, that spiritual element doesn't have access to those neurotransmitters. That's a physical thing in our bloodstream. But what that tells me is there's some kind of a spiritual analog, because the spirit within us can ache and feel sad, as well as having the physical symptoms. So understanding, I love what you said, Nick, about broadcasting that. No matter what I'm feeling, it isn't confined to me. You've all been in a room when someone walks in and you know what their mood is just by how they feel. Angry, happy, ecstatic, something happy. You can see it, you can feel it, even if you're not even looking at them. Someone can walk in the room and you can sense the energy. So that broadcasting stuff is real. And you may be broadcasting whatever you're broadcasting. This is something I give people, and I call it one of my $3 billion secrets. No matter what you want to create, here's one of the three things. It's worth $1 billion. Notice and choose. Notice and choose. Notice and choose. So what, Brian, you said notice is right. I notice I'm feeling this. Okay, what do I choose to do? What do I wish to create? Here it is. I'm feeling this thing. Now you can take it further and get mad at yourself for feeling it, or judge somebody else, or blame. You can do a whole bunch of other crap and then add a bunch of more stuff to it. Or you can just notice and then choose. What am I going to do now? I'm going to bring love. And since we're talking about love, I will say this: love is always the answer. So no matter what you're feeling, if you bring a vial of love and pour it on the situation, your vision about what to do is clearer. Your thoughts about what action to take are more effective, and your ability to do them is enhanced if you bring love to the situation.
So are you familiar with Heka, the Egyptian form of Heka, Heka?
I've seen it somewhere. Maybe you posted something about it.
I'm looking at it today. I did post this week on it, but I've been looking at it all week around this idea of Heka, which is that our words have power, and they're empowered by the emotions that we attach to them, or the emotional verbs that we add to them, or adjectives, or whatever. Viktor Frankl's
Now I have
quote,
to look up adjectives, and
you got to look that up too. So Viktor Frankl's quote: in between stimulus and a response, there's a space. In that space is the power to choose our response. And people think, oh, I can't be negative. I've got to be positive. But the real power is in neutrality. That if you're feeling or having a negative event or experience, that to neutralize it and pull it back into that space in between, right, is just as powerful as the positive. Research shows that neutrality is as effective as positivity in changing our mindset and our emotions. But we think, oh, I've got to be positive or I've got to be negative, with no allowance for that in between, right? And Heka is the idea that somebody said that you would outperform most people, 90% of people, if you would not self-sabotage when you're in your lows. And what most people do is when they're in their lows, they empower it with negative thoughts, emotions, words about why they're despairing, undeserving, unworthy. They judge themselves heavily. And so it empowers the negative. And then that negative ripples out, broadcasts out, If we could just remain neutral and just state the facts, like you said, it's an observation. This happened. These are the facts. I don't need to add emotion to those facts. That neutralizing of it, I think, is where the power is, like Viktor Frankl says, to move it in another direction, to now empower the positive and add those emotions that you could have added to the negative over here to the positive and broadcast that out and bring that back into your world. Do you have a view around that?
I think the idea that words have power is something that I completely agree with. And it's even if you don't add, here's what I notice. I notice when you write something, if you are angry, and then it carries the emotion. And I don't even know how. I'm not saying you say angry words. When you read some language, it carries its own power. Truth carries its own power. Language carries power. It's just the ideas we've been talking about. Many words: love, hate, bitterness, forgiveness, rage, fury. All those things, just the words themselves carry power. Those words are not neutral. They're loaded with their own power. And yes, it's partly what we make out of them, but your conversation about what we're broadcasting is so important. We are broadcasting into the universe, even if we're alone, every piece of energetic construct that we have. And since we're talking about love, if we make a conscious choice for ourselves, not in order to, or not so that, but just because we decide that we are going to be a source of love, and in order to access that, then we access infinite love all the time. So think of it as a connection. I had a weird experience once. I have weird experiences all the time, but this particular one is appropriate to this circumstance. I was awakened at 3 a.m. by the Spirit, and I got up to go out for a walk. And in the process of that walk, I was thinking about our connection to divine love. And so as I was walking, I was actually walking with my head sort of looking up toward heaven, wherever that is, and thinking about what is my job? Well, my job is to be a reflector of that love. And so I was imagining a sort of a parabolic mirror or like a magnifying glass, something that gathers and concentrates light and love and can broadcast it. And what I realized then is if my job is to do that, or I don't say job, my choice, my desire is to be a purveyor of, then I have two assignments. One is to keep my mirror polished, because when my mirror is dirty, it can't reflect very well. So to me, that represents negative feelings. It represents forgiveness. It represents all kinds of stuff. So I need to polish my mirror because I want to be the most effective broadcaster of love that I can be. And the second thing that occurred to me is I'm looking at heavenward and I'm broadcasting love through this mirror and that I keep polished. And you know what? The minute I look around to see who's watching, I broke the connection. So if you think about that and you think about tying yourself to the source of infinite love, which is all around us and available to everybody all the time, it's only my connection that keeps it from happening, and my mirror that's not polished to keeps it from broadcasting, or that would keep it from broadcasting. And that includes forgiveness and self-forgiveness and self-sabotage. It sort of cleans all that up, because I can't be self-sabotaging if I'm busy, intently focused on receiving and broadcasting love in the most effective way. I can't. And so that to me is something that happened. And at the time, it was one of those things that happens that was so profound and powerful that it overcame my physical body. I had to sit down on a nearby bench immediately or it would have collapsed. Just the awareness of that whole process that happened. And so like each of us, we're divine. You know, you're divine. You have that connection. And it's just a question of, do you want to have it? and forgiveness and self-sabotage and self-loathing and resilience. What you said, it's a choice to understand that you are worthy. You are already that, and you can't even make that not true, no matter what you do.
You can't. The only limitations that I see coming in this universe are the ones we place on ourselves. Like Townsend Wardlaw's, a belief is limiting by the nature of believing it. Becky Robbins said that she doesn't set goals because it limits what she creates in the world. Like we of ourselves become limiting. We become that nocebo. I can't do this, therefore we can't. And Henry Ford, when he said, whether you think you can or you can't, you're right. And so it's not that the universe makes us unworthy, undeserving. It's that we make ourselves unworthy, undeserving in relation to the universe. And then we believe it so much that that's what we project out. And that's what gets reflected in our mirror. It gets all dingy and dirty or reflected into our reality. So there is no limitation outside of the limitation we create. And
that was the reason I wrote the book of Context, was the idea of that you can change all your beliefs. You can change all your beliefs. And your comment is the night is never dark. The absence of the physical presence of the sun doesn't constitute darkness. It's simply the absence of solar radiation, which, by the way, comes from the moon, and there's plenty from the stars. So I didn't think of it that way, but it was at 3:30 in the morning, so the sun wasn't up yet.
Yeah.
The sun wasn't up.
I'm just going to bed.
Yeah. You know what? If that could happen in the absence of sunlight, then imagine how much more it could be in the daytime, I guess.
Yeah. Wow. So let's talk about accountability and procrastination. Those are the other two comments here, and tying those into love, like accountability, to be able to account, and procrastinate. And my thought here is, I hear that from Marta Barlow, is to put off, right? What do you think on that?
Oh, accountability. We talk about coaching, and coaching, I say, I don't know that it's funny. As a coach, you know what you're selling? You're not really selling using providing. You're providing shortcuts, hand-holding, and accountability. And I do that because that's one of the three things in there. Shortcuts are ways to use curated or available or powerful information faster, more efficiently, to use the word from earlier. Hand-holding is I'm saying it nicely, not in a pejorative way. It's that piece of encouragement that's required.
I don't even know what that
us.
means.
Pejorative, yeah.
Pejorative, a negative way. So you could say, "Oh, what do you need? Hand holding?" That would be a negative way to look at that. If someone is discouraged and fallen down, and you reach down and pick up them, hold your hand out and lift them up, that's also hand holding. So when I say I'm using hand holding in a non-pejorative way, it's not negative in that way. So we provide shortcuts, hand holding, and accountability. And the accountability is what we're talking about. And accountability is what helps us maintain discipline. And discipline can be defined of just remembering what's important. And so when you have to give an account of your actions for a day or a week or however long your accountability period is, that's one of the things I love about meditation and prayer. I choose to use that every single day as an opportunity to hold myself to account before God. Before the divine. I say, this is what I plan to do today. This is what I did. Some of it's the same. Some of it worked. Some of it didn't. And I don't say that with any negativity, and having learned to eliminate all that. And so when I talk like this, people sometimes think two things. One, well, that's fine for you, but I can't do that. Or they think I'm full of crap and I'm just saying a bunch of stuff. And either one of those are understandable, and neither one of them are true. I came from a place of a $3,000 a week cocaine addiction, suicide attempts. The battlefield that I lived up until I was 52 for my entire life, the first 52 years, was a disaster and is easily the fodder for a movie or two. In fact, I've been asked about that a couple of times and haven't done it yet. The point is, you can go. I don't care where you are. If you get accountability, resilience, those are developable skills. Those are things you can learn to do. You're a divine being. You have infinite capability and power. Those are facts, and you can't undo those. You can not take advantage of them. You can turn off the radio receiver. You can cake the mirror with dirt, but you can't undo the fact that you have it, you are it, and it's available. So accountability is just the joyful opportunity to take account of everything that you did and see and make sure that it's what you meant, what you wanted. And if it's just what you did, and like Byron Katie says, I know it's what should have happened. Why? Because it did. Okay, you can do that too. And there are times when I look at what I did and say, yeah, that's what I did today. And I'm not sure it accomplished what I wanted. So I'm going to adjust it. And making those adjustments is just another form of notice and choose. Notice and choose. So that's what I think about accountability. And I forgot the other word.
Procrastination. There's skills, right? Or things you can develop.
Procrastination comes from not believing in yourself. You're doing the Henry Ford, I believe I can't. I believe I'll fail. If I try, it'll suck. If I do, people will laugh. I'll throw a party and nobody will come. There's 100 versions of that. But the truth is you're valuable and you can learn, even if it's one molecule at a time, 1% improvement at a day, 1% more this, that, and the other. So all of them are tied to love. If you love yourself furiously and deeply as a divine child of God, you wouldn't procrastinate any good thing that is available for you to do.
There's a couple more here we'll get real quick. I'm up on time here. I've got to go to another appointment. But these two here, one is Fake People in the World from Mancherry, and the other is Joni Enerson Technology. And I'll hit on technology real quick, as we're using technology right now. And it's neutral, and it doesn't care what you put through it. So it just enhances the broadcast of what we're doing. So technology to me could be a tool that's useful or harmful depending on how you want to use it and what you're broadcasting into it. Like AI and video like this, there are plenty of people that are spreading negativity as much as there are positivity. So it's not that the tool's bad, it's that the tool is something that's here for us to enhance or augment what we're already doing. So it'll be an expression of whatever's already going on. Is there another?
I can use a hammer. No, I can use a hammer to pound a nail to build a house or bash a hole in the wall. Still a hammer, and it was me that did the thing. So I get to do what I want. I'm loving technology, AI, video, green screens, all the cool stuff. Why? Because it allows me to do stuff I couldn't do otherwise. Do I have to have it? No, because we lived effectively for a zillion years without it. But I can sure reach my goal. Okay, so here's my commitment. My commitment this year is to reach 250 million people and to help them understand who they really are and create from that infinite possibility. Now, I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to reach that goal. Life and death, blood, sweat, and tears, I'm going to reach it. And I don't know how, but technology is a big part of it.
Yeah, got to be, right? All the books, everything we write. The idea on fake people in the world, if we just hit on that real quick, is again, it comes back to us. They can put on a facade, they can put on a show, but what does that have to do with us? If it affects you, if that external locus of identity and control is affected by other people, then again, I think it's no self-love there. It's love more of what they're up to. And then that has the impact because we've created some value in their fakery. Like our identity or our control is affected by how they show up. And I would say, come back to how are you loving on you? And can you love people right where they are, even if you don't agree with it? And even if you don't hang out with them, you don't have to be around them. Right. And that doesn't mean that you're not loving. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is to not care. Right. I think Steve Hardison shared that. Care enough to not care.
Fake people in the world. There's a lot of things to say about that. One is I don't know how I would know they're fake, except if I'm judging them. And if I'm judging them, that means I'm applying some stuff to them that I don't even actually know about.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I know. Here's what I know from my own journey. I can love everybody and I can allow them to be where they are. It's not my responsibility to move them or fix them. I can offer them everything that there is to offer, and whether they take it or not is not up to me. And the other thing I use is a funny called Witot, the Witot fungus, and it's an abbreviation, WITOT. And I created it at the beginning of COVID 4 years ago, and I said the Witot fungus kills more people than COVID ever will. And Witot, WITOT, stands for what I think others think. And so if you find yourself fussing about all that stuff, you need to check and see if you're infected with the Witot fungus and take appropriate measures to eliminate that. Because what other people think of you is none of your business. And you actually have no idea where they are or where they've been or anything. And if the interface or the communication or interaction between you is harmful, then you need to make adjustments to fix that. Yeah, and that's as simple as that. And you can do that without drama or emotion on your side and without anything. It might be on their side, but that they're allowed to have it and they're allowed to be that way. And I don't have to take responsibility to fix it, punish it, praise it, or do anything else. I get to choose how I'm being and do what I choose to do today.
Final thoughts, guys?
Yeah, I love Nicholas T. Smith and Ryan X. Morris, since I don't know what your initial is.
R.
Ryan R. Morris, because
like
Ryan R. Morris. Yeah, kind of like Toys R Us. R. And I love you guys. Thank you for this thing. It's fun.
I love you too, man.
And I want to give to your audience today and the ones that watch it later. I don't care where you are. I don't care what you've been through. I don't care what's happened before. Today is a new day. Today is the 20-something of January, 2024. And you can make a choice right here, right now, to change the direction you're facing. Where you are makes a lot less difference than the direction you're facing. If all you can do is move 1% toward something new today, then move 1%. In 100 days, that'll be 100%. So do it. You're worth it. And there is nothing that can keep you from creating the life that you want for yourself.
It's beautiful. Ryan, final thoughts?
Gosh, Kellen, like you always amaze me. Your sense of humor just makes me laugh all the time, and it hits me square in the chin at the same time. I know where, like when Kellen says something or when he does something, I know where it comes from 100% of the time, and that is from love. You are that, and I appreciate you, and I love you for that because it's helping me to see a model of that for myself in my own life. So I really, really do appreciate all that you do and all that you are. And I know that I've got page of notes here, a big page of notes. And I know our viewers have felt the same thing because it's coming through in the comments already and will continue to project into the world. So thank you for being that gift for not only for yourself, but for others.
Yeah.
You are welcome. You're welcome.
For those that are watching, yesterday I talked to Kellen about the topic today. The thing he said to me is, what would be most useful to your audience? And so we did that post to see what's on your minds, and we tried to hit most of it today. I think we got a good chunk of it. But where he's coming from, just so you can hear this, is from that space of you. So this wasn't about Kellen or anything that he's up to. You'll hear he's sharing his philosophies, but the clear intention with him is to help you with what's most useful to you. And that's what we try and do in every one of these episodes, is figure out what would serve you today. And sometimes we don't know that Witot, we don't know what you're thinking until you tell us what you're thinking. And so being able to have a glimpse into what matters to you helps us to craft these shows so that they serve you more deeply. That's our intention with everything we do. We'd invite you to go see Kellen at kellenflukiger.com. Is that the best place to send them?
It is, and there's all kinds of them. And here's the fun thing. There's KellenFlukiger.com, and that's funny because I didn't have to pay anything extra for my name, right? Because who wanted KellenFlukiger.com?
The odds of two of you guys.
I went to go get it, and it was already taken. I was like,
yeah, I'm sure you did. And I've got another one called YourUltimateLife.ca, and there's some free things there that have to do with creating your ultimate life. And I accidentally left this one up on the screen, lovecoachsinem.com. It wasn't anything I did intentionally. It was there from yesterday's broadcast. That is a thing that I have for coaches about how to get clients and stuff. All of the things that I'm doing are geared around the idea that you can have your ultimate life. There's nothing that can prevent you from having a life of purpose, prosperity, and joy, but you do have to create it because it's not going to come in an Amazon box.
I think that's the thing to remember right there. It's not on Amazon. This isn't something you can buy there. So for those that are watching, we appreciate your comments. We love you. Make sure that you come join us at my12journeys.com. If you're a coach, consultant, a change maker that's ready to spread this message of giantness, here's the only caveat I have is if you come to that site, you will become a giant. So don't come there if you want to play small. This is a place for upper level growth. And so come join us there. It's free at my12journeys.com. Thank you as always for joining us here. We hope you go make it a giant day, and we will see you in the next episode. Have a great week.
love you too.